Hi, and welcome back. We're here for part 2 of this long talk about, I guess, me and Alex.
Yeah.
A bit more.
I think we talked a lot about journey. I mean, because I think when we started the first episode, we started filming, our producer Mike Harvey said keep going because it's a 2-part, and we don't hit a lot of 2 parts.
Yeah, that's true.
You guys did a great job on just opening up, talking about a journey of a young man, young men, and going on. So we hope you enjoy this next part 2 segment of a fantastic episode.
Yeah.
So I love that you guys have been through it. So as I saw you, and I remember when you were always volunteering for the church, but then you broke away and you went to work. Was it Freestyle or Pac West?
It was Freestyle.
Okay. And so then I remember that you used to have some pretty cool gigs.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. I used to live vicariously through some of your gigs too.
Oh yeah.
I remember I was doing a wedding out at Bickville Country Club.
Yeah.
And you were there as the DJ. One thing I do got to say about you, I think you and I did 3 weddings maybe, or a couple.
Yeah, there were a couple.
And as long as I saw you there, I was like, this is going to be okay. Because I think I told you some of my horror stories.
Yeah.
So Nathaniel, you always did a great job. But tell us how you broke from the church volunteering to going into almost the same thing as a job, source of income.
I grew up in it. At age 12, my dad threw me a lighting handbook because I'm like, hey, I want to help out, Dad. And he's like, cool, sound. I'm like, cool. And he's like, oh, our lighting guy just quit. Here is a manual. Can you please learn this? I don't want to learn this.
You learned how to program.
Yeah.
Now Daisy changes these lights tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was pretty close to that.
Yeah.
But I learned that from age 12, and I just grew into it. And we happened to know someone who worked at that place, and they got me an interview. And at that point, I was maybe 19, so I had 7 years of experience under my belt. I got to do that. Within a month, I was in Idaho, doing a private wedding for Juliana Huff.
I remember that.
It was
That
cool.
was when she was on Dancing for the Stars.
Yep.
That's
stuff
crazy.
like
That was
that.
great. It's fun too because I got to hang out with her brother quite a bit, Derek Huff, who
Because he was on there too.
yeah, he also, and then he broke away to do his own show, and it was so much fun because what happened was, well, it was a little scary too because they had an accident. There was an accident out there, and I got to talk to them a little bit while they were waiting because there was something happened there, and then 6 months, maybe a year later, I was in Wisconsin doing a different gig, and Derek Huff was there, and we were out there just having fun. I was doing my job, doing lighting a little bit, and they had a nice band out, and I went to go see him. I just I gotta go talk to this guy again. I miss this guy, so I went up to him and I'm like, hey, how are you doing, man? He's like, I know you from somewhere. I'm like, okay, maybe he remembers me. I was like, yeah, I was at your sister's wedding, and I thought that's a little weird to say, but I'm just like, I was at your sister's wedding. He's like, yeah, you were the Tiny Sound guy. That's right. It was just cool that he remembered me. It was so much fun.
You
And
left
then,
an impression,
yeah.
Daniel.
And then going from that, I did lighting for Snoop Dogg for an event, and that was a lot of fun.
Oh
I
yeah.
got to meet some other pretty neat
That's
people.
probably a wild party, huh?
That really was.
Just the gig was a wild party.
Yeah, it was a very small room, but it was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
I like that.
Yep.
I like that. And you guys got to work together there.
Yes.
On certain events.
It was also really funny because I was working at Jack in the Box at the time, and I was like, hey.
Well, he was working with Snoop Dogg shows.
Yes.
You're at Jack in the Box.
Yes, and I was basically just like, hey, is your company hiring? And he goes, you don't want to work there
Yeah.
because the hours are insane.
Yeah.
And he's like, I highly recommend you don't do this because you will never see your wife for a very long time. And I'm like, I don't care, I need the money. And so ended up
Jack in
doing
the Box
it.
isn't paying what they're paying you.
They were not.
That's
But
just
yeah.
a hard fact. Right
Yeah,
there.
we ended up working. We both ended up working there for 3 years,
Just about.
but just different windows of time. And then I ended up following him.
You got to see two different sides of me too, because normally I'm very sarcastic. I tell a lot of puns. I tell a lot of cheesy jokes, and I'm a pretty chill person most of the time. I try to I stay relaxed, I stay calm, and then you get work, Nathaniel, where I'm a manager of 10 guys and I'm yelling at them. We got to get this done now, and I'm yelling at them, and he got to see that of me like commanding my people. I'm just like, no, we got to get this done now, and I'm very on point. Everything's got to be perfect, and it was funny for him because I'm sorry, man, you're gonna see a different side of me.
It was fine though, and it was also funny too because the dynamic changed during freestyle because we started. That's when we became roommates down the line, and everyone was like, because they all knew I was married, and they're like, oh, where are you moving? And I was like, oh yeah, with Nathaniel over here, and they're like, what? And then it became like things became a little bit more convenient because everyone's like, oh, we know these guys live together, so they can like do gigs together, and things worked out in the end with that.
Yeah, and that was fun though.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun too. That was just a fun job. I mean,
Yeah.
I sometimes miss it, but I don't miss the hours.
Yes, cause I remember when you would be up with your dad, because your dad in ministry, and especially in the gig you guys were doing for us, Easter and Christmas, you would see the sun come up, sun go down, sun come back up.
Yeah, there were times where I slept at the church working on the stuff.
We've all slept at the church. Remember those days? They're like, Dad, you said we're going to go home and woke up in the same place. Did we go home? We go, no, we never went home.
Denny's was our best friend 24/7.
Yes,
oh, yeah.
So continue on with your journey, Nathaniel. So as you were working at Freestyle, and then how, at what point did you come back in to intersect with your faith?
Well, it was interesting because there were a lot of things. One, a year before I quit, I got in contact. I started going back to CSUB slowly. I was like,
well, I tried to drag you in. Did you ever feel that?
No, you
were
constantly.
Was that obvious?
It was funny. You're just like, hey, Nathaniel, we really would love your help out here again in the CSUB. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I was just like, yeah, maybe. And I started getting connected with Mike.
Mike Harvey.
Yeah.
I think I drug him in the same way.
Yeah. But me and Mike didn't really talk that much before. We were just kind of, we would talk here and there. We'd say hi. He knew me growing up, and that was basically pretty much it. And I got to know Mike more. I got to work a little bit more. And I was like, why not? I'll go back to church. I should. Like other stuff isn't panning out, so why not? And so I started going back to church a little bit. I started doing that, and then I asked Mike about, like, hey, I've been wanting to get in IT. Do you have a position open? He's like, right now, we're not sure. And that was kind of the thing. It was like, okay, not sure. So we talked a bit about that. And then I'm like, maybe this isn't for me. And I went back, working at Freestyle, working there constantly. And I got convicted at Freestyle because at this point, I'm 3 years in. Like, this is a year later. I'm 3 years into the job. And when I went in, I was a quiet. Basically, I was very quiet. I was very polite. I was very nice. Like, I didn't do anything crazy or anything. And when you get into that kind of environment, it's you do whatever you can to survive. So it's like you're doing crazy things all night. You're just basically it's partying and then working hard. And so 3 years in, one of the guys comes up to me, and this guy wasn't a Christian, and he comes up to me. He's just like, and you came in, you said you were a Christian. You were very, you stuck to those morals. You were very quiet. You were polite. It's just a shame to see what you've kind of become now.
So it's almost like he's saying, hey, you reverted. We like the old you.
Yeah. Yeah. He was just like, I'm sorry that something happened to you. I'm just like, and you're now this person. I'm like, oh yeah, I probably should go back to church. Like, I was just like, how far did I go? Like, I didn't even notice.
I had an opposite experience, Nathaniel, because when I became a believer, I managed a large IT company, a large IT department within inside a very large agribusiness firm, and my operations manager brought everybody in my office, and it was local, so it was about 25 people. And she was from Alabama. Her name was Diane Bailey. Diane watches every once in a while. And with her southern drawl, she asked me, what changed? And I was looking at them all, and they were all serious. And I was like, well, I don't know what you mean. I got saved. And she said, I told you all that. And everybody started to leave. I go, hold on a second. And Diane held back, and I go, so is it that obvious? She goes, oh, yeah. And I go, okay. And she walked out, and I was like, I'm almost like, oh, man, was I that bad?
Yeah.
That it took a meeting to find out what happened because I had changed dramatically. And that's when I realized that it did make a difference. It did matter, and people could tell. So it's interesting that you started out here solid as a rock, kind of got off, and somebody came back and said, hey, we like this version better. So so you had to morph the two, didn't you? Yeah,
it was interesting because, one, I was a very quiet person. I'm not so quiet anymore. I'm actually pretty talkative.
And you speak your mind.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm very blunt. I'm very blunt.
I've seen you and Mike.
Yeah. And it's funny because, so I was like, okay, well, I started going to church a little bit more after he said that. I'm like, hey, I need to get back into church. That's a starting point. And then I lost my Sundays. I was working every Sunday, every Saturday, or I'd work till 4 a.m. on Saturday. So I'm not going to church. And so I started getting irritated. And then it was February, almost end of February, beginning of February-ish of 2020 that I'm like, okay, I'm kind of tired of this. I just got done with a 48-hour shift, and I had another shift in 3 hours for another 8-hour shift. And I'm like exhausted. I'm like, ooh, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I was like stressing out. I'm like carrying like ridiculous things with no sleep. And so I'm like, I'm almost on the verge of tears. Like that's how much I've been working.
Yeah.
And I call Mike and I'm like, I haven't talked to Mike about the job in over a year. And we weren't even really talking much at CSUB. I just kind of helped him out here and there as much as I could.
And that'd be strange for me because I watched you guys. And it looked like you were communicating, but you were just doing the job.
Yep.
So you can go to church, but not let it sink in.
Oh yeah.
You know, and that think's important for a lot of people to think. Well, I go to church. Well, is it sinking in?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it changing your behavior? What's it doing for you?
Yep.
Because that would, for me sitting here, I was like, I saw that relationship happening. Did I ever tell you how I sucked Mike Harvey back in?
I don't think so.
He's sitting over there right now. He remembers the day. One day I got a call from Cal State, and we for our audience, we were at had a Christian church at the CSU Bakersfield for a decade, and one day I got a call that the internet system was down, and I had another IT guy there, and he was just telling me, well, we're going to have to just not have service today. I go, we're not going to do that. I know a guy named Mike Harvey. So I called Mike. You can shake your head, yes or no. I called Mike Harvey. I go, I think I need your help. He goes, what am I going to do? I go, I don't know. You're going to figure this out for me. And I told him what was going on, and Mike goes, they've got to have a live internet here someplace because this can't be their access point in.
Yeah.
So Mike did like a 56-foot cable. He put it together, and he went and found
that's amazing.
And we had service up. So the other guy that was there, I was like going, I told you Mike would do it. But it was funny. He goes, well, I guess I probably should start volunteering. I go, that'd be nice. Obviously, you know a little more than what we had. So that's how that happened. I think. You got anything to add to that, Mike?
It's close.
I said it's close.
But yeah, so I'm on the verge of tears, crying. Like I'm like working tired. I got that other shift coming up, and I'm like, oh, this is not going to be fun. So I called Mike. I'm like, Mike, do you have anything open right now? And I just hear him say, hey man, yeah, let's talk. And I'm like, cool. So we talk. We're like, he met with me a few times. We talked. We prayed about it because I've been really wanting to, get it something where I can go back to church and help. And this is funny because he hires me on, and I put in my 2 weeks notice. 2 weeks after I put in my 2 weeks notice, Freestyle shut down due to COVID.
I was going to mention that because I was like, we got furloughed. Yeah. And I was like, you sure you didn't know anything else about what was going to happen?
So are you in touch to something? I think you have shared that, but it didn't impact me now until just like this. So you were able to kind of slide into something right before the COVID thing happened.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. And it's funny, you were still there.
Like the following Monday or like maybe a week after that, I come home and I'm like, I don't have a job right now. And he's like, that sucks.
He just slid right in.
Yeah, exactly.
It was such a blessing though. Like it was such a God thing to be like, I'm trying to get back into church, this and this. I'm tired of this job, and then I get this blessing, and then it's right at the perfect time.
And then I was gonna say
it's at the perfect time. It wasn't a year before, it wasn't a year later, it was right then.
So let's modernize a story that we've all read in the Bible about the prodigal son. Who came and went its own way, and let's say the father had just said, hey, just go find your way. And as you were out there in there, and this is the story in the prodigal son, he's out there when he realizes there's something better. And it took a move for the prodigal son to come back, took a move for you to be able to get back. But God didn't waste any time in showing you his faithfulness, because right when you did, you had employment where other people didn't. Not saying that you lost your job because of that. But I'm just saying, it's saying that there's never a time where you can't come back. I'm not saying that's going to solve everybody's problems, because you sow what you reap what you sow. Yeah. And sometimes I tell people, just pray that the crop comes in soon. And
exactly, and deal with it. Yeah.
But it's just neat to hear you kind of modernize that story, where you came back in. And it wasn't that you had everything solved. You just solved the one thing that was getting in the way. I just got to grab my Sabbath back. I've just got to get back into where I'm getting the word, I'm getting fellowship, getting Christian involvement, because you had it at home, but just getting back to where you were able to be part of something. I think that's pretty cool.
I also think it's the same thing happened to me later. It was just a different time, because it ended a different season for you guys, because I worked for freestyle for about another year, and we had a bit more of a rough, busy season. And
because everybody came back.
Yeah, and we're missing some more people because people were moving on, and so we were all having to kind of take on the same work
2 or
with
3
less
hats.
people. Yes,
4 or 5.
Yeah, and so my wife was like, "Hey, like, I need you home, like more than the amount that you are." And
More
I was
important
like,
things to
yes,
life.
exactly. And then I noticed Nathaniel was coming home and editing videos. And I thought for the most part nothing about it, and I was just like, because I didn't know exactly the context of what you guys were doing with like lunch breaks specifically and all that stuff. And then like more and more you were editing, like you were kind of frustrated because you were like working a full day and then coming home and editing.
Yeah.
And then you're like, hey, my roommate knows how to edit videos. And then within like a month or 2 after that, like I started talking with Mike and through you and all that stuff, and they hired me on as the video editor for here. And so it was like the same type of blessing, just about a year down the road.
Yeah, it's really kind of exciting for me to be involved with Mike and his business and vision, and to see that it's been able to help other people, and that's the way Mike is, to be all that they can be in something that they enjoy. I mean, to me, that's what being around in fellowship is supposed to do. We're supposed to pass off the things, let other people come in, and then we get more. Yes. And I know as we're talking through things, and I know Mike's on the other side of the table over there, but we're seeing him get blessed in that. I mean, just even today, probably doing another podcast or something for another group, also being able to have you come in and edit some things, and also see other work come in. To me, that's kind of a culmination of something that, but you have to have people join you. Yeah. Mike couldn't do it alone, so was able to bring in other people like-minded at the right time with the right mindset in the right circumstances.
Exactly.
So, I love that.
Yeah.
So bring us up to date now, Nathaniel. Things going on.
Well, it's always still working on getting a closer relationship with God. It's really neat because here we haven't done it this morning, which we should have, but we try to open up every single day with a devotion and prayer. We pray for each other. We open it up with the devotion, and we just kind of talk out the day. And that's always the highlight of the day, because that sets the tone for the day. You always, the first thing we do that. The rest of the day usually goes smoothly if we do that. It's really neat to see that.
Figure that, right?
Yeah, I know. Right?
Yeah.
God, whatever do, take care of it. So I like that.
But yeah, so that's mostly what it is. I'm still getting back, into, trying to help out with young adults as much as I can be there, helping out at, the church a lot more. I'm trying to get more hands-on in there. And it's been fun helping with the tech and all that stuff. It's something I've always wanted to do.
You know what I can ask you, Nathaniel, because there again, as you still are a young adult, and I think you've got a lot of miles under you, because you have experienced a lot. How do you find it when you're helping the other young adults? Are you able there to say, hey, I've been through this, let me give you some words of wisdom? Because what I recognize as the older guy, if you can't tell, what I recognize is that when, there again, even when I talk to like my son-in-law to be, or my daughters, maybe their friends, you're the old guy, so the volume of your voice is going to get turned down. But when they see it from someone like you, or someone like you, Alex, they tend to sit there and look and absorb it. And I've had that experience, which I think you've probably had that experience with your parents, where my daughters came home and they'll say, so-and-so said this. And I'm like, okay. They go, man, it really is cool, and it really works, and I'm going to incorporate it in my life. And I'm going, I said that for 10 years. But there's no credit,
Yeah.
And I don't know, as parents or older mentors, you're trying to want credit. I think everybody does somehow. But you've wanted to, maybe guide them in a different direction. But when they hear it from a voice that has the volume turned up a little louder, might mean somebody that's closer to their age, somebody who might look like they've been through something before they have. So does that, your experience, have you found it able to help the young adults?
I haven't talked too much to the like being able to there as much as I'd like to be eventually. But there are people who I've talked to. You know, it's funny because even back in high school and even before I can remember, and I always appreciate this. People like to talk to me because I'll listen and I don't immediately give advice or even if I do at all.
You're genuine, Nathaniel. You're genuine.
And it's nice because I always try to give my opinion if they ask for it, and
because it's not welcome if you don't ask for it.
Yeah, or sometimes people just don't want anything; they just want you to listen. And a lot of the times now that I'm going through after everything I've been through, it's kind of interesting because now I'm just like some people are like, yeah, and this and this and this. I'm like, don't. It's not worth it. No, don't do it. And
let me tell you the pitfall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of interesting being able to say that now that I'm able to like see that now because I definitely was blindsided by a lot, but being able to tell people, hey, you got to watch out for this. Like I know it looks like this, but you got to watch out for this. Oh, yeah. And it actually does help some people. Some people are like, I didn't think about it like that. I didn't think about this, and they take that and sometimes I don't know.
Do you ever go home and say I sound like my dad?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I dress like him, so I mean,
I think I felt this. I remember the first time I sounded like my dad. I was like, I would never do that. But as you're younger, I could see that, and I could see the counsel of your dad. How about you, Alex? Do you ever get to a point where you got to minister to Nathaniel? That's obvious.
Yeah.
But in your young marriage, do you ever get to give some advice? Some godly advice, maybe some just practical advice to other young people around you?
Yeah, I have multiple best friends. But like I have a more secular friend. He believes in God in a general sense, but he's more closer to agnostic than anything else. And what's funny is that he and I emotionally flipped. So in like middle school / high school, I felt very like borderline depressed. I went through full depression like in like early college years, but like basically he was very confident and very positive despite going through a lot of stuff. Like with like bad relationships, like he was cheated on multiple times in high school, which like looking back on it, like I've never been cheated on, but it's like you kind of realize, oh, like that relationship could have been dumb in the first place kind of thing. But it's been eating him up because I was kind of like, we joke about it, but like I was the loser in high school, and I've now been married for like 5 years now. And he's still single, and he's like kind of kicking himself, and he feels kind of down. And God has given me so much wisdom with relationships now that it's like, hey man, you got to do this, this, and this, and you got to just stop looking. Like that's the first thing is you need to stop looking, and that's strangely when God will put someone in your life, and it's nice, and it's I never expected it to happen, but it's such a privilege that God has put this friend, like kept this friend in my life. Because I now get to show him God's love. It sounds like it's hard because it's like I don't show him God's love to him every single day. Like sometimes we just hang out and play video games or something. But when he needs me, when it comes to him feeling down and stuff like that, that's when I can really minister to him. And so it's just a blessing. That's all I can say.
So can we go back and touch? So I talk to a lot of young college kids, and a lot of kids kind of lose themselves after high school. Mm-hmm. Did you do that in college? You said you went through some depression. Mm-hmm. How did you come out of that? I don't think it's such an important of what sent you in. How did you come out?
I don't know. I felt like when I was going through depression, looking back on it, I don't have it felt kind of chemical and kind of situational, but I really didn't have anything to be depressed about. And I wasn't very spiritually sensitive. It could have been something spiritual, but I think I feel like now that I'm looking back on it, I can see what exactly kind of happened. I felt like I started just giving my feelings to God. And within a few weeks after that, I realized that like all the things that made me sad weren't important. And then sure enough, like probably a couple months after that, I met my wife.
And do you see a pattern like that sometimes when you're looking out broadly speaking, that as you're, because we all do narratives in our head, right? Mm-hmm. We'll see a circumstance, whether it be on TV, do this. I mean, do you ever go back there and say, man, I wish they just like lean this way a little more or that way a little more.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
I think and I always believe this because in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 3, it says, God will comfort you in all your afflictions
Mm-hmm.
so that you can comfort others.
Yes.
You know, and I love it when young people are able to be in those positions.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe you both have influence and you both have opportunities. And I think that's the thing that I think our show wants to bring out.
Absolutely.
And I love it that you guys are part of the show, and we're getting more things going on. So,
Oh yeah.
Nathaniel, what would you like to leave? Like maybe you didn't hit on something that you'd like to leave the audience with, and then we'll go to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something to leave the audience with. Let's see.
What was a question you would have asked the younger you when you got off track, knowing that if you looked back?
Something that was interesting was I took Christianity for granted. I always, I don't know. Even as a kid, it was interesting. I always felt blessed, and I've kind of took that for granted. There's a lot of times I'm like praying, because I was really close with God when I was in high school. Like I'd be like praying for something, like maybe, I don't know, my car broke down or something like that happened, and like someone would just walk up and bless me, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. And then like I remember like in college when I kind of stopped going to church, I still felt someone praying for me. I still felt like even my parents or someone praying for me. And there are times when I'm just walking, I'm just like, oh, sure, I don't have to look at this. I don't even have to follow God yet. God's blessing me. And I just constantly was just taking that for granted. And then, that's something that I just never felt right. You know what I mean? And it's crazy to think now that like all those times that would happen, that's when like it would like hit me personally. I'd be like, even though like I'm like, cool, I got a blessing from God, I'm not even following. And then I'd be like, I need to go back to church. It'd start hitting me hard.
Maybe this is the directing me back there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's something that I wish I would tell myself, is to take the hint earlier, because it took way too long. It took way too long for me to not. I was pretty stubborn. It took way for me to.
I think we all are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In our own way.
Yeah.
I love being in your life. How about you, Alex?
I think for me, what I would want to tell the audience is, especially if you're my age, is that we all have struggles. And I know like deep down that like 20 years from now, I'm going to look at my current struggles today and I'm going to roll my eyes. But I think what we need to take home and what we need to focus on is that even if we make mistakes today, it doesn't mean you can't go back to God, or that you feel like you're not worthy enough. Because I think when I was going through depression, I felt like I was depressed because I wasn't good enough. And that's like within a secular sense, and within like my family, my friends kind of sense. And I think that if I were to like tell my younger self, like you were asking Nathaniel, is, it sounds cheesy, but it's like it's almost like no matter where we are in our life, a lot of things are not that important, but they just feel like the most important thing in the world, and that it will never change, but it really always does.
I did a TikTok the other day, and comparison, and we heard this on our show. We had Johnny Rizzo, who was a school psychologist or psych, and we also had David Boyd, who was a vice principal. He works for the current high school district now, but he said he was always trying to be a people pleaser. Because he never felt he was good enough. And Johnny Rizzo came on and said, because comparison isn't a normal thing that comes to us. It's what we do to ourselves. We compare. It's not something that you just throw out there.
Yeah.
It's something that we do to ourselves. And the minute you start comparing yourself, because no one's the same, no one's circumstances are the same, that's where you start to see you fall short. But then when you take your sights up a little higher and you see Jesus, then that's really where, hey, I want to emulate that.
Exactly.
Because isn't that what we're all there? I mean, the Bible says that we're all supposed to be conformed to the image of Jesus. And we keep it a lot lower. Think about the Hollywood scene or an influencer scene or something, and saying, oh, I'm not that, or I'm not this. Well, we're not supposed to that. We're supposed to be the us's. We're supposed to be us.
Yes.
I tell people I want to be the best me that I can be. I can't be somebody else. So I think that's important for people to know. Now, this is for our friends John Haddad and Meredith Carter over at Lucky's Rescue. They have a closed colony. I think that's what's called, Mike, our producer. It's a closed colony. And so that means that when the dogs come in, they don't get exposed to other dogs that are outside of the colony. They get their shots. They get everything done. They put them in cute little bow ties. They take pictures, and then they adopt them out. They also do horses and chickens and cats, we're told, but we only get to have dogs because we go to their website. So Meredith and John, if you're out there, we'd like to have some other animals, species. But today we have Bailey.
Yeah. So it says here, Bailey is believed to be about 6 months old and is all fun and games. She is a darling little girl with the strongest mix of breeds, giving her the most adorable physical characteristics we've ever seen.
Ooh.
She's a crazy concoction of husky, pit bull, German shepherd, Alaskan. Well,
I think you
I
can
can't read that. There's a lot more.
on mute.
Yeah, there's a lot more there.
Because they do a DNA test, and I think Bailey is
Everything.
yes.
Yeah, just about. It's a pretty dog though.
Yeah, you
And
can see her on the
It
screen.
says Bailey
Yeah.
gets along with everyone and is not a shy girl. She wants to meet absolutely everything that moves. She would be great in a home with other dogs, cats, and kids, but they do not recommend senior dogs or cats.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, hey, if you like to adopt Bailey, go on out to Lucky's Rescue and hit the adopt button right under Bailey, and I'm sure they'd be able to do that. We want to thank our Joanna behind the board today. She's new with our tech team, but catching on and
Yeah.
running the pilot seat. When you guys are up here, somebody's got to be back
I'm
there.
usually the one back there, but
Yeah.
I'm here, so.
Joanna's doing a great job. We have Sean over there. He's a new intern, and he's going to be helping Mike and MLS Solutions and MH. Mike Harvey Solutions. MLH Solutions.
Yes.
And we want to thank MLH Productions for helping produce this, help you guys, because you'll be editing it
That's
later.
true.
Nathaniel will be probably fine tweaking it or giving him instructions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like
definitely.
that. Want to thank Mike Harvey, always lending himself in his studio. We got a new studio. I love the new studio.
I do
so
too.
do I.
Yeah, thanks to you guys and Mike.
It's still work in progress, but it's so far it's so good.
And I think Marcus Mamalejo has got to be thanked today
Yeah.
for some of the stuff that we're seeing soundproofing. And we want to thank Taylor Test and Touchstone, who still consult on our show because they talk to me all the time. And they do like the sign. They like the colors. So we
great.
want to just give a shout out there, and we'll sign off.